Oh, 28 December 2012. Freezing outside. It's about 47 out. Let's go right to the board. Looks like Bonhoeffer asked us a question. Let me show you. On the 19th of 2012, he asked, when is peak oil? All right. There it is. It's impossible to tell exactly when peak oil is happening or is going to happen because there are artificial signs going on, such as the price of oil isn't determined on the amount of oil, it's determined on the stock market. That will probably change pretty soon, and let me show you why. Remember, in 2008 we had $147 per barrel of oil. At 120, the economy will go into a bell curve, just like the oil supply is going to a bell curve. So whenever the prices get above 120 or at around 120, the economy cannot take it any longer and crashes. What exactly does peak oil look like? Peak oil, really, if we look at it in a very close-up look, it looks like this. In other words, it's impossible to tell when peak oil happens. So what happens is the economy, the oil reaches $120. The economy goes into steep recession or slight depression. The demand for oil decreases because you can't afford it. So then the price of oil falls, people start to buy, the economy picks up, and once again you're back up, the oil begins to go back up in price, and then you get 124, let's say, hypothetically. Same thing happens, and it just keeps going. Some say that each time we go into one of these dips, it'll get worse and worse. So they'll just keep getting more extreme dips each time. Does that make sense? And that's why you get so many different peak oil theories of when peak oil happens or is going to happen or has happened. You also said that it's been said for years that peak oil is coming. Yes, it has. It was mentioned in 1930 by Hubbard, who discovered that each oil well peaks. Oh, let me show you on the board. Okay, an oil well, a conventional crude oil well, comes online, peaks, and goes down and peters out. It's called a bell curve. Most things in nature are a bell curve. A leaf will come and die, will become green, green, green till it reaches a maximum, and then as fall comes it dies out. This is the way nature works. Oil, whether it's Texas crude or Brent crude, is sort of in layers. It can be sort of like this kind of thing where there's a big main pocket and then oil seeps into the ground, of course, around the pocket. Alright, so what happens is that this is the top of the ground, here's the oil rig, here's the derrick, comes down into this oil reserve. So we pump this big reserve out. So we may put in multiple wells, may slant drill, whatever it is, and this thing depletes. So then you get down here where all the rock and gravel is, so they'll pump water down in here and other chemicals, such as they'll use this well to pump water down, and it will force this with the water, and the hot water and the chemicals will force the oil mixed with the water and chemicals over to here, and then they'll pump that out. Then there's another way over here, they call it shale oil drilling, where they do the same thing. They frack. They'll come in here and explode this area, blow it up underneath the ground, make a big chamber in here, and then all the other oil will seep into this chamber and they'll pump out of it. It's simplistic. Oops. Drop the pen. This is very simplistic, and it's just meant for that. But the point here is what is. Worldwide, these big chambers are running dry. What's called conventional oil is running very low, and then you have all the fracking oil over here on the side, which they're just now starting to get into. A fracking well will last about a year, to 2 years before it's useless. So conventional oil over here, where this could last for 50 or 60 years, this could only last a year or 2 years, and it takes multiple wells to drill into the thing. So as we peak on these, boy, what's happened to my pen? It's got a strange look to it, doesn't it? So as we peak, see what happens when we write with it. It seems to work. So as we start drilling into these either shale oil or converting coal to liquid fuels or natural gas to liquid fuels, whatever it is, the cost goes up. Let's say that we, first of all, every large oil field in the world has now either peaked and is in decline or is just getting ready to peak. The one that's just getting ready to peak, the big one, Saudi Arabia. When Saudi Arabia peaks and starts to go down, the world will go down. And this is why. It takes a lot of energy to get alternative oils, or what they call bitumen, into oil. Let's take the tar sands. You dig this thick goo out, which is sort of the consistency of a thick paste, and then you use natural gas to heat it up, and that turns it to a liquid. Then you pump it down the pipeline all the way down to wherever you're going to pump it, and then you have to refine it as a Brent crude, or a very sulfurized heavy crude. There aren't that many places that refine heavy crude, and Louisiana and the Gulf of Mexico tends to be where those refineries are. The light crude refineries are up in the northeast. The medium to light grade refineries are also here in California and San Diego, but most of the heavy crude is processed in Louisiana. So right now a conventional oil field will cost about 1 barrel for every 10 barrels. So you get 10 of these for every 1 that you use to get the oil out. This bitumen or tar or shale oil, you get 1 barrel of oil for every 2 to 3 barrels of oil out. As soon as the cost is equal to, so in other words, you get 1 barrel and you get 1 barrel out, that's when it's cheap enough. It will be the same cost as, let's say, wind or solar. The issue here with wind and solar is that we're not talking about, peak oil is about liquid fuels, which is transportation. That's what we're talking about. Gasoline, diesel, heavy bunker fuel. This problem is much more complicated than what I've said. It has to do with the speed at which you can get the oil out of the ground and onto market before the demand surpasses the amount of oil. Right now, globally, we're roughly between a 1 and an 8% decline in oil production. How much will the alternatives fill the gap of conventional oil? Well, let's go to the board and let me show you. Conventional oil. In other words, oil that you just pump out of the ground, put it in a refinery, and turn it into liquid fuels. Alright, let's say we're talking about the tar sands, the shale oil, the coal to liquid, and then the natural gas to liquids. All together, they're about that much. At their peak production, that's all they'll fill. How much will alternatives like solar and wind? Well, that's even smaller. That's about like this. And because we're running out of rare earths, that's not going to get much bigger. It'll get a little bit bigger. This may get a little bit bigger, but this is going to shrink very quickly in comparison. A 1 to 3 to 8%, and it'll be a wobbly up and down. So sometimes it may go back up and you'll think, oh, well, there's no more problem. This has filled this, but it really hasn't. We're just, as the economy goes back down, the supply diminishes and then the oil comes back up. So as we've been seeing with barges in the bay, the fluctuation is getting pretty dramatic. I have a video for you guys to watch. It's a lecture at Cornell University about peak oil. Just done. Very good. This is how I get some of my information. I'm going to put the link on Pink Barrio right underneath the video. So until next time.